Zappone. Do you think state pensions are in line or more generous than private pensions?
Well, there's no question that they're, well, there's no question that they're more generous than private retirement programs, without question. I mean, there aren't that many private pensions available, so the question itself is a little bit off. I myself have a 401k. Most people who work in private business have a 401k. You know, would I rather have a pension or 401k? I'd certainly rather have a pension at this point with the way the economy, the stock market has gone. It certainly seems like a much safer bet. I think this is a point between with politics, is that people's retirements, things people are planning on, has become a political football. We sign contracts, we made agreements with our workers in the state that they would have certain benefits. And I, for one, don't take signed contracts lightly. I think we have to do our best to live up to them. And I think that when you're comparing private sector to public sector, it's not a question of why is one area better than the other. The question should be, how come the private sector isn't keeping up? What are we fundamentally doing wrong in this country and in this state that private sector 401ks, private sector retirement plans aren't as beneficial to people? That you can't retire as easily as you can with a pension. I mean, let's not pretend that the pension system was just invented here in this country. I mean, the pension system's been around much longer than the current 401k strategy. So I think it's really a shell game when you're saying, how come this is better than that? The real question is, how come the private sector hasn't been able to keep up with the basic level of retirement benefits that we've offered in the public sector? Going forward, I think there's one thing that's very important, for our state municipal workers, is that they don't feel that their retirement and that their health care plans are under attack every 2 years. We have to agree on a program and be able to settle on that.
Thank you. I would probably be one of the folks that want to be counted in the category of thinking that the state's pension package is more luxurious, more rich than what most people enjoy in the private sector. In the state of Connecticut, about 100 people retire every month. I was kind of shocked by that number, but that apparently is true. I think there are opportunities for us, and that's an opportunity we should not miss, to change the state's retirement plan on a go-forward basis. That should be a #1 priority for the legislature. It hasn't yet. It's been something that has been set aside, as my opponent says, to become a political football. Immediately, they try to run to the 40-something years retired employees and say they're going to take away your $842. Some folks on my side of the aisle say, we've got to stop this and we've got to go backwards. I think there are probably some areas that the legislature can agree on, and I suspect that one of them is that we need to make a very significant change to what rate people retire at, whether it's 20 out, 25 out, 30 out. We certainly cannot afford in the state of Connecticut the program that we have. It will be insolvent probably by 2019. There have been a lot of estimates about that. What's happened in the stock market has decimated the retirement dollars here in the state of Connecticut. I do think, however, that we need to be careful how we do it. And I think the best way to start is the next-in employees negotiate benefits and wages, retirement at the same time, balance one against the other. And if we're going to hire somebody new, bring them into the state of Connecticut's employee, they ought to be in a different plan. I don't think the state of Connecticut believes we need to somehow make 401ks match the state's pension plan. The truth of the matter is the state's pension plan is more driven by years in than it is by what the employee pays in, and it's never going to match.
Excuse me. Mr. Minor, how important is conservation to Connecticut's future?
Well, the state has spent a fair amount of money on conservation. We've acquired a significant amount of land for parks and open space, and I think that's something we should continue to more heavily focus our efforts on farming instead of perhaps open space in general. Quite often that becomes who you know and what you know rather than the value of a piece of land. There have been studies done over the last 50 years or so that talk about the state's inability to feed itself, I guess is the best way to put it. We need a certain amount of acreage of tillable land, good tillable land, to provide what most folks talk about, which is food security. And so if we're going to continue to acquire property, I would like to see us focus more directly on locally grown food, property that will actually facilitate that, rather than property that will sit fallow. Most people don't even know that it's owned by the state of Connecticut, but I do believe conservation is important for the state.
Thank you, Mr. Zappone.
In those terms, I agree with Craig 100%. Conservation is important for the state. We are defined by our parks, by our mountains, by our rivers, by our beaches. Connecticut is one of the most beautiful places you can go in the world. I travel throughout the entire country, and I can say when I fly back into Connecticut and Bradley Airport, I'm always very happy to see the green rolling hills of Connecticut. So conservation is very important. I would ask Craig why his forget that. I would ask Craig in the future to not refer to me as they. I'm not the one who's been in the legislature for the past 10 years. That would be you. So.
Mr. Zappone, what should be, continuing with conservation, what should be done, if anything, by the government to reduce our use of and dependence on fossil fuels?
Well, I think this is important, not only for conservation, not only for our environment, but for our economy in general. Here in Connecticut, we spend 23% more than any other state in New England, and we have the second highest energy rate in the entire country, behind just Hawaii. So clearly, we have an energy problem in this state. I think that investing in green technologies would be beneficial to the state of Connecticut. I think that having more energy efficient homes would be beneficial to the state of Connecticut. I think not only would it take pressure off our grid, but it would also be a way to spark small businesses, to spark people who work in construction, to have the opportunity to put more geothermal wells in, to have the opportunity to put more solar panels up on people's homes. Really, what we have in this state at the moment is an energy crisis. People talk about taxes, they talk about registration, they talk about fees. The number one reason why Connecticut is an expensive state to live and do business in is our energy crisis. And to that extent, that efficient technology can help us reduce that stress, I'm certainly in favor of. Again, this is another situation where my opponent has been in Hartford for 10 years, and he doesn't have a track record of promoting this sort of legislation. He doesn't have a track record of promoting efficient technology throughout the state and bringing it really into our daily lives. That's something that would be very important for me, and it's something I'm looking forward to doing once I get to Hartford.
Mr. Miner?
Thank you. I have supported green energy initiatives in the past. I think they have a place in trying to solve the problem that we have. I can tell you that there was a decision made last year with regard to permitting on farmland, which had to do with a cell tower, but I think the language is pretty clear about structures, the way the decision came down, and we would probably be one of the only states in the country that wouldn't allow a farmer to erect some kind of a solar panel if it was on land that they had sold the development rights to. And I don't know about the public here, but I think it's absurd. We desperately need more energy to be developed here in the state of Connecticut. We don't even have the ability to bring it here in the state of Connecticut in the quantities that I think business is looking to use it. So we need a very consistent and clear path in terms of our permitting processes. That stops a lot of projects dead in their tracks. Try and get a windmill up in the state of Connecticut. It is almost impossible. And then DEP. The permitting process there is brutal. People don't see the return on the investment to start with. It always has to be government subsidized. And then if you take into consideration all the run out on the permits and licensing process, it's very difficult to do here. So while my opponent thinks it's not something I've supported in the past or an initiative that I have helped to work on, it is, and he's wrong. And I do think there's a place for it here in the state of Connecticut, as do I think there's a place in the state of Connecticut for other power opportunities. All I think we need to do is to sit down, develop a plan for the future, understand what our energy needs are, and build some kind of a system to meet that need so we don't depend on others.
Thank you.